Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
What if the very words you speak are draining the power from your dreams? What if sharing your plans is the reason they never become reality? And what if silence, not noise, is the hidden key to success? Every time you reveal your next move, a little of your energy leaks away. Each detail you share fuels doubt, resistance, or even sabotage. Power fades when it's exposed too early. That's why mastering the art of silence is essential. When you keep your life private, your progress multiplies. Speak less, move more, and let your results whisper what your words once shouted. Protecting your peace begins with guarding your story. The more you share, the less you build. You might believe that talking about your plans anchors you to action, but ask yourself, has it truly worked? Or have you noticed that the more you talk about what you'll do, the less you actually achieve? There is a quiet strength in holding your ambition close. When you speak too soon, you invite opinions, resistance, and the false comfort of intention. Words replace action, approval becomes a trap, and suddenly you're performing life instead of building it. A seed doesn't announce itself as it pushes through the soil. It grows in silence, and only when it breaks the surface does the world take notice. You are no different. Your goals don't need applause. They need grit, consistency, and privacy. Hold your vision with quiet confidence. Protect it like a flame in the wind. Let people witness your results, not your rehearsals. Ask yourself, do you want recognition for planning or victory through execution? Imagine sculpting a masterpiece in solitude, every stroke and curve crafted in silence. Now imagine stopping every few minutes just to seek approval. You'd lose the rhythm, the magic, the momentum. That's exactly what happens when you reveal too much, too soon. Guard your plans, build in silence, and let the world see the results when they're ready. Only then will they understand what you've been working on. Every time you explain, you open the door to doubt. You may believe sharing your plans will bring support, but what often follows isn't encouragement. It's skepticism, warnings, and hesitation. People don't doubt you because they know your path. They doubt you because they can't see your vision. And every time you try to justify it, you weaken your own belief. You start bending your dream just to make it acceptable to others. But the more you reshape your vision to please people, the less it fits your soul. You don't need permission to chase what burns inside you. What you need is resolve. And resolve grows strongest in solitude, not under the weight of constant explanations. Seeking approval isn't weakness, it's human. But it's dangerous because it's addictive. Soon, you'll confuse nods for progress and likes for milestones. The next time someone asks what you're building, smile, nod, and simply say, "You'll see soon." Ask yourself this: if no one approved, would you still pursue it? Picture a man building a boat in his backyard. Passers-by laugh, seeing no river nearby. They assume he's wasting his time. But one day, he wheels that boat to the river, sails into the horizon, and silence falls as everyone watches in awe. That could be you, if you keep rowing quietly. You owe no explanations, only execution. Silence builds pressure, and pressure builds power. There is power in silence, not the kind that explodes, but the kind that builds. Like steam inside a sealed engine or a valve pulled tight before release. Holding your vision inside creates pressure. Discipline forms, desire grows, and when you finally act, you move with force, focused, fierce, and unstoppable. But speak too soon, and the pressure leaks. You feel as if you've already accomplished something just by talking about it. The mind is tricked into thinking words are action, and momentum slips away. The great achievers of history understood this. They didn't announce their plans. They worked, and then they arrived. Their silence wasn't secrecy, it was strategy. So ask yourself, are you building pressure, or are you letting it escape through your mouth? Picture a spring wound tight, held back not from fear, but from preparation. That's your energy when you stay quiet, coiled, precise, ready. Let silence become the tension before your triumph. One of life's hardest lessons is this: not everything you start will be understood, especially in the beginning. Share your early steps too soon, and you invite early judgment. And judgment kills momentum. A young vision is fragile, like a sprout in its first days. It needs warmth, care, and above all, protection. You must learn to build without being seen, to walk without witnesses, to act without applause. You're not hiding, you're fortifying. People will ask, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you changing? And the temptation to answer will be strong. But remember, your progress is not a performance, it's a process. When you can move forward without needing approval, you've crossed into mastery. Imagine baking bread from scratch. The dough rises quietly in the dark. It takes time. Open the oven too soon and the bread collapses. Your life is no different. Let it rise, undisturbed. You don't owe updates, you owe results. Let silence be your mirror. The quieter you become, the more the world notices, not with applause, but with discomfort. It isn't attention you're chasing. Your stillness forces others to face the chaos they avoid. Calm, focused, disciplined silence is not passive, it's power. It stirs something in people, often unease, because a person moving forward without explanation makes them ask a question they'd rather dodge. What am I doing with my time? That's the tension your quiet presence creates. You show up, do the work, stay the course, and without a word you highlight everything they aren't doing. Your discipline becomes a spotlight. Your restraint becomes contrast. Many will prod, gossip, or joke. Anything to make you break your silence and explain yourself. If you talk, they feel justified in their noise. But if you stay quiet and keep building, their excuses collapse under the weight of your consistency. Understand this. People rarely react to your truth. They react to how your truth threatens the lie they're living. Stop wondering why they doubt you. It's not your job to soothe their discomfort. You are not their mirror. You are your own mission. Your silence is not emptiness. It is structure, intention, and discipline forged over time. It is not your responsibility to narrate your effort for those unwilling to walk their own path. Let them wonder, speculate, or talk. It makes no difference. You are not here to be understood. You are here to build. Picture yourself climbing a harsh, freezing mountain. No crowd, no cameras, only you, the wind, and the next step. It's hard, it's lonely, but it's real. And when you finally reach the summit, exhausted yet victorious, the world only sees the silhouette. They never felt the struggle, the cold, or the weight of each step. But the peak belongs to you, not because of what you said, but because of what you endured. This is the power of quiet. It doesn't ask to be noticed, it demands respect. Those who build in silence leave monuments that need no explanation. You don't have to raise your voice to make an impact. When your life becomes proof, silence becomes legacy. So stay the course, keep your focus, and let your silence speak louder than words. There was a time when your thoughts were like still water, pure, undisturbed, and undeniably your own. Your goals lived quietly within you, untouched by judgment, free from fear. But the moment you gave them voice, something shifted. You believed sharing would empower you, bring support, encouragement, even admiration. Instead, it brought noise, opinions, doubts, second-guessing, and dismissals dressed as concern. Gradually, that inner flame, the voice that once lit your path, dimmed under the weight of what others thought. You may not have noticed at first. A friend's offhand remark, a mentor's caution, a parent's fear. You absorbed it all, thinking you were being wise, open-minded, receptive. But with every piece of advice that didn't match your soul, a layer of dust settled on your vision. Now you hesitate, not because you lack belief, but because their fears echo louder than your conviction. Reclaiming that voice is the essence of true growth. It isn't loud, glamorous, or broadcasted. It's real. Too many chase recognition before results. They want praise for potential, applause for ideas, admiration for declarations. But potential isn't power. It's only the suggestion of it. You don't change your life by sounding impressive in conversation. You change it by being relentless in execution. So when you're tempted to announce your next move, your comeback, your big plan, pause. Sit with it. Build in silence. Don't steal from your future by seeking validation too early. Prove it with results, not promises. Every time you speak instead of act, you dilute the energy that should fuel creation. Don't mistake motion for progress or planning for building. And never think being seen is more important than being ready. Respect is not earned by those who talk well. It's given to those who live well. If you want true respect, let your results speak louder than any announcement. Make your life your proof. Let others witness your strength, not because you pointed it out, but because it's undeniable in everything you do. Imagine two men, both claiming they're committed to transformation. One talks endlessly about his plan. What he'll do, why it matters, how it will change his life. His words sound certain, but his actions are scattered and conditional. He waits for motivation, for applause, for the perfect moment. The other man says nothing. He simply shows up each morning while others still sleep. While some waste time scrolling, he trains, he reads, he works. No announcements, no performances, just quiet, deliberate steps. Weeks pass, then months. The first man has stories, the second has strength. Which one would you rather be? In the end, it's not about what you say. It's about what you do consistently, quietly, every single day. That's where transformation is built. So talk less, move more. Let silence be your partner and discipline your guide. When the world finally notices, it won't be because you told them. It will be because you left them no choice. Confidence that needs approval is not confidence at all. You say you believe in yourself, but the moment a new idea sparks, you share it, hoping someone nods or says, "Yes, you can." What you may not realize is that in those moments, you're not affirming belief, you're borrowing it. You're reaching outward for permission, for agreement, for applause. Yet true confidence doesn't need echoes. It stands alone, quiet, steady, unshakable. The trap of constant sharing is subtle. You think you're being open, transparent, accountable. But in reality, you're asking the world to cast a vote on your worth. You're holding your vision out like paper in the wind, whispering, "This is what I plan to do. What do you think?" And when they hesitate, you hesitate. When they question, you flinch. Their doubt becomes your doubt. Their pause becomes your paralysis. That isn't belief, it's bargaining. You're negotiating your destiny piece by piece with people who were never meant to sign the contract. And here's the hard truth. Confidence built on applause isn't confidence at all. It's dependency, disguised as dreams. It's fragile, because every cheer can turn into a chuckle. Every "you've got this" can flip into "I told you so." When you tether your courage to the crowd, your strength becomes a puppet, dancing or collapsing depending on the noise around you. So what's the alternative? You build quietly. You protect your fire. You don't owe the world the early chapters. You don't need to explain the plot before the story is finished. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them stay distracted while you work in silence. Because when the foundation is deep, when the roots have taken hold, only then will the world see what you've known all along. Picture this. You're building a fire in the dark. The wood is damp. The wind is unkind. Yet you kneel, shield the spark, and nurse it patiently until it catches, grows, and begins to glow. Now imagine if every time your flame flickered, you turned outward and asked, "Do you see it? Isn't it amazing?" All that breath spent reaching for attention only steals the oxygen your fire needs to burn. In time, what could have roared fades into silence. That's what happens when you speak too soon, when your energy goes into being seen instead of becoming. The flame of belief is fragile at first. It needs stillness, protection, and repetition, not exposure. Let it grow in private, layer by layer, until it no longer flickers but radiates. Until the light and warmth are so strong the world can't ignore them. When that day comes, you won't need announcements. Your results will speak. Your transformation will be undeniable. And those who once doubted will ask how you did it. But by then, their permission won't matter, because it never did. Keep your belief to yourself, not out of fear, but out of respect. Respect for your vision, your discipline, and the process that builds legends. Not headlines. You are not here to entertain with empty talk. You are here to prove, quietly. Let your work whisper first. Let your results roar later. Let the world feel your heat when it's ready, not when you're unsure. That's the difference between hoping and knowing, between waiting and becoming. And that is the kind of belief that cannot be broken. Privacy is discipline, not weakness. Too many people misunderstand silence. They think if you're quiet, you must be uncertain, lost, or afraid. As if strength always needs to shout and confidence must always explain itself. But silence is not the absence of knowing. It's proof of mastery. It's the discipline to hold your vision close when the world demands a preview. It's the choice to build, not broadcast. Silence is not weakness. Silence is wisdom. It marks those who don't need noise to feel valuable. It's easy to speak about dreams. It's easy to announce plans and chase applause. But sitting with your ambition, letting it grow and shape you in the quiet, requires a strength few possess. Most want validation before the work is done, not after. Yet true transformation begins in privacy, not performance. Privacy isn't secrecy, it's clarity. By keeping your process sacred, you free yourself to think without echo, to fail without shame, to adjust without pressure, and to grow without distraction. That silence becomes a forge where rough ideas are heated, hammered, and sharpened until they turn into tools for execution. So ask yourself honestly, are you seeking growth, or are you chasing attention? Growth is quiet, messy, filled with long nights and painful reflection. Attention is loud, polished, posed, and shared for approval. And if you're addicted to attention, you'll rush the process, trying to look finished before you've done the real work. In doing so, you trade depth for decoration. Imagine a blacksmith learning to forge a sword. In public, every slip of the hand is magnified. Every flaw is mocked. The crowd watches not to support, but to critique. That pressure makes it hard to breathe, let alone focus. But in private, in a quiet forge away from prying eyes, the blacksmith can fail without fear. He can try again and again, burn his hands, dull the blade, even break it in two, until one day he holds not just a sharp weapon, but a true one. A blade that shines because it was built with patience, not performance. This is the forge you must choose, not the one with an audience, but the one with freedom. Freedom lives in silence, in keeping your vision to yourself until it's strong enough to withstand judgment. You don't know the world, your process. You don't need to prove you're trying. The results will tell the story when the time is right. Let silence be your sanctuary, not your prison. Let it be the place where focus sharpens and ambition matures. Don't let the world rush you into proving something you're still learning. Protect your vision like a flame in the wind. Shield it, feed it, give it time. Because one day, that quiet flame will grow into a fire no one can ignore. There is power in the man who walks forward without explaining. There is power in the woman who holds her plans close until they're complete. That power isn't loud, but it lasts. It builds in silence until it becomes undeniable. So the next time someone mistakes your quiet for fear, smile. Let them think what they want. You are not hiding, you are refining. And when the time comes, you won't have to speak, because your life will say it all. Not everyone deserves a front row seat. You've been generous, maybe too generous. You've opened the doors to your soul, laid out your plans like blueprints, and revealed your struggles like open wounds. You've shared your hopes with full sincerity, trusting others to treat them with care. Some did, but not all. Because not everyone who listens is there to support you. Some sit in silence, nodding, while secretly hoping you fail. Not out of hatred, but because your progress makes them uneasy. Your courage exposes their excuses. Your movement highlights their stagnation. There are people who collect your words like weapons, waiting to use them when you're most vulnerable. Some pretend to cheer, but quickly whisper doubts behind your back. Others simply cannot comprehend what you're building because they've never built anything themselves. Yet you've let them in, into the sacred chamber of your life, the space where visions take form and identity is shaped. You've allowed them to walk there with muddy feet and noisy opinions, hoping your openness would be met with understanding. But here's the truth. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not because they're evil, but because they're unqualified. They haven't earned the right to hold your plans, let alone judge them. And every time you explain yourself to someone who lacks the eyes to see or the heart to care, you lose a little power. You scatter the sacred energy that should fuel your action, not defend your intent. The more you speak, the more you dilute it. Before long, you begin reshaping your ideas based on their reactions instead of your own conviction. You start questioning your direction just because someone frowned. You let the wrong people enter the theater of your mind and critique a play that's still being written. Their voices turn into background noise that blurs your vision, their doubts into whispers that make you hesitate. You must learn to be selective, not from fear, but from respect for what you're becoming. Silence isn't secrecy, it's strategy. Privacy isn't withdrawal, it's wisdom. When you keep your mission close, you protect its roots. This gives you the space to nurture, refine, and strengthen it before the outside world tests it. Imagine planting a rare seed, something ancient and powerful that takes years to bloom. Would you let just anyone trample through that garden? Would you allow strangers to step on the shoots, disturb the soil, or laugh at its slow growth? Of course not. You would guard it, water it quietly, watch over it carefully, and wait patiently until it broke through the earth with undeniable strength. Your dreams are that seed. They don't need validation. They need protection, solitude, and above all, commitment. Your role is not to convince the world your work is worthy. It's to do the work. Stay rooted in your process and let your results be the loudest statement you ever make. This doesn't mean isolating. It means curating. You choose your audience as carefully as an artist decides when to unveil a masterpiece. You don't hang unfinished sketches in the street. You wait until the painting is complete. Then, and only then, do you reveal your work to those who can truly appreciate its depth. Not everyone will, and that's perfectly fine. Your life is not a public performance. It's a sacred journey. Each time you keep something for yourself, you're not withholding, you're protecting. You're honoring the silence where transformation thrives. You're giving yourself the gift of undisturbed growth, declaring to the world, I'm not here for applause, I'm here to become. You speak less, not out of hiding, but out of focus. Build in silence. Water your roots. Let the soil of discipline deepen before the bloom is visible. And when your tree finally stands tall, steady, and full of fruit, let it be seen. Not to prove anything, but because the results speak for themselves. Choose your audience carefully. Not everyone is meant to walk with you. Not everyone can hear your truth and still protect your peace. Keep your inner world sacred, strong, and ready before opening the gates. Your life was never meant to be a stage. It was always meant to be a sanctuary. Momentum isn't usually lost in one dramatic crash. It seeps away in whispers, in casual conversations, in innocent disclosures. You mention a plan to a friend, explain a goal to a colleague, or share a vision in excitement. With each word, a little urgency fades, a bit of confidence slips, and without noticing, your energy begins to leak drop by drop. The true danger isn't always failure or resistance. More often, it's erosion, and that erosion starts the moment you speak too soon. What was once a burning engine of intent slowly fades into steam, released before it ever turned the wheels forward. Words, when spoken carelessly, become escape hatches. They let out the pressure you should have stored inside. They create the illusion of progress, a false reward that feels like movement but produces nothing. You talk about your routine, your vision, your strategy, and for a moment it feels good. The rush tricks you into believing you've already done something. But the truth is, the wheels haven't turned, the stone hasn't moved. All you've done is narrate the idea of action while standing still. And each time you explain yourself, you trade substance for satisfaction. And satisfaction is the enemy of action. It convinces you your dream is already halfway complete just because someone nodded in agreement. The applause, the approval, even mild encouragement, all become substitutes for progress. Slowly, the fire cools, the edge dulls, and one day you wonder where your hunger went. But there's hidden power in silence. Not secrecy from fear, but privacy born of strength. When you hold your vision close, when you refuse to scatter it through constant conversations, you protect it. You preserve its force, its urgency, and you give it time to mature in the dark, hardening into resolve before facing the storm of doubt, or worse, shallow applause. Because applause can be as dangerous as criticism. It feeds your ego before your work has earned it, fooling you into believing the stone has already shifted when it hasn't even been touched. The longer you stand describing your plans, the less likely you are to act. So ask yourself this: are you building your dream or just narrating it? Are you shaping your future with discipline and effort, or painting imaginary victories with words? Picture a man standing before a massive stone. He wants to lift it, move it, carry it across a field to prove his strength. But instead of lifting, he explains how he would do it: where to grip, how to brace, when to breathe. Words without action leave the stone exactly where it stands. He tells everyone, again and again, how certain he is about the plan, how proud he feels of it. Days pass, yet the stone hasn't moved an inch. That's the danger of speaking instead of acting, of trading doing for describing. The truth is, your future doesn't need a narrator. It needs a builder, a doer, a quiet force that compounds effort instead of convincing others. You don't need to explain where you're going. You need to go. Every word spoken is a step not taken. Every conversation drains the energy that could have fueled motion. You don't need external approval to validate inner drive. Your purpose isn't up for public debate. That's why some of the most effective people are the quietest. They don't leak energy. They don't let opinions taint their vision. Their fire burns because they've kept the steam contained. They're not waiting to be noticed. They're working to arrive. You must do the same. Be ruthless with your energy, protective of your direction, and selective with your words. Don't describe the stone, lift it. Don't perform the idea of progress, move. Even a single step is louder than 1,000 promises. One day of effort is more powerful than a year of flawless plans. Let your silence build pressure. Let your stillness sharpen your edge. And when you finally move, let it be so clean, so decisive, that no explanation is needed. Let your results be your language. Let the world find out only when it's too late to doubt you. Don't leak, don't speak, just move. Because movement, not noise, is what makes your dream real. Protect what hasn't matured. Your goals are like fruit on a tree. They need time to form, to ripen, to become nourishing. You can't rush the process, and you certainly can't display it before it's ready. Pick fruit too early, and what could have been sweet turns sour. Expose it too soon to the wrong elements, and it withers, not from lack of promise, but from lack of protection. The same is true of your dreams, your ambitions, those quiet visions that flicker in the early light of becoming. They are not yet strong, not yet whole. And the world, impatient and noisy, does not wait for things to bloom before it judges them. Sharing too soon can be destructive, even if it doesn't seem so at first. You speak your dream before it has found its legs, and suddenly it becomes vulnerable to opinions, misinterpretations, and careless criticism from people who were never meant to understand. They question its shape, they challenge its worth, and worst of all, you begin to listen. You adjust the blueprint, not because you discovered a flaw, but because you absorbed their doubt. That is how a dream begins to rot, not from within, but from what you allowed in too early. The early stages of any worthy pursuit are fragile. They demand silence, not spotlight. Repetition, not recognition. Reflection, not validation. What you are building requires your presence, not performance. Yet many, intoxicated by the idea of support, rush to share. They open the door too early, seeking applause before they've built something strong enough to withstand critique. And in doing so, they interrupt their own process, not from lack of ability, but from impatience. Patience is not passive, it's protective. It says, I will not let this be judged before it's ready. I will not let the world touch what is still forming. Think of a loaf of bread rising in the oven. The process is quiet, unseen, but absolutely essential. Open the door too soon, and the heat escapes. The structure collapses, and bread full of potential falls flat, not from lack of skill, but from lack of stillness. Goals work the same way. They cannot be rushed. They must be guarded, nurtured, and given time. What if you kept your progress safe, hidden from noise and wind, until it was strong enough to stand on its own? What if you trusted the process enough to let it unfold without constantly proving it exists? Imagine raising a hawk, majestic, fierce, but fragile at first. Its wings are soft, its muscles weak. Would you throw it into a storm and hope it figures it out midair? Of course not. You would train it quietly, feed it, watch it fall, and try again, away from crowds, away from danger. Only when it grew strong, sharp, and fast would you release it into the open sky. Then nothing could stop it. Your dream is that hawk, and your ideas are not yet armored against criticism or indifference. They need a season of training, a season of silence. Let solitude be your shelter. Let obscurity be your incubator. While others chase the spotlight, you build strength in the shadows. You sharpen your focus. You grow, not louder, but stronger. You repeat your efforts, not your announcements. There will come a time for unveiling, a moment when what you've built can stand against the wind without bending. Until then, respect the process enough to leave it alone. Let it live inside you like a secret too sacred to share. Let it grow without interference, because when it's ready, it won't need an introduction. Its presence alone will be enough. The world rarely nurtures unfinished things. It celebrates the polished, not the potential. That's why you must protect yours. Be the guardian of your own ripening. If others don't understand your silence, let them wonder. If they ask what you're building, let your life show them later. Right now, your duty is to the roots, not the fruit. This is your season of becoming. Unseen work, unspoken progress, growth in the shadows. Real transformation happens in the doing, not the talking. So stay quiet, stay disciplined, and tend to your vision like a gardener protecting something rare in the soil. And when it's ready, matured in silence, strengthened by consistency, then the world will see it, but not before. Until that day, let silence be your strength, patience your protection, and discipline the sunlight under which it grows. Nothing truly great was ever rushed, and nothing that is truly yours needs proof, only completion. Work done in silence always echoes the loudest. You don't need a crowd to create something extraordinary. You never did. The truth is, many of the world's greatest works were born in the dark, far from applause, far from the spotlight. That is where greatness begins, not in noise, but in silence. Not in the arena, but in the workshop. Not surrounded by cheers, but by tools, effort, and solitude. Because when you're not performing, you're improving. When you're not caught up in appearances, you're free to focus on what truly is. Silence isn't emptiness, it's a forge. It forces you to measure yourself not by the noise you create, but by the discipline you maintain. Without the pressure to entertain, you can elevate. Without the burden of being seen, you're free to become someone worth seeing. That's the paradox of mastery. It grows best where no one is watching. The person who works in silence carries an invisible advantage. He is underestimated, so he moves without interference. He is undistracted, so his focus cuts sharp. He goes unnoticed until his work becomes so refined, so undeniable, that the world has no choice but to see. And by then, it's too late for the critics, too late for the doubters. His craft speaks for him, louder than any introduction ever could. You don't need to announce greatness. Let your results enter the room before you. Let them shift the ground quietly, commanding attention without asking for it. The moment you stop needing to be seen is the moment your power multiplies. When you do it for the work, not for recognition, your energy becomes pure, focused, relentless. And no silence can diminish the force of what you're building. Ask yourself this. Would you still keep going if no one clapped? Would you rise early, grind quietly, correct mistakes, and refine your craft even if no one saw the effort? That question matters. Because if your answer is yes, then you've already set yourself apart. Most people only chase admiration. Most people want to be seen working more than they want to be great. But the true builders are sculpting in the shadows, carving excellence out of silence. Picture a craftsman in his workshop. The room is dim, the tools are old but faithful. Day after day, he returns to the same table. He carves, he sands, he polishes. No audience, no applause, only the rhythm of his effort. People pass by unaware. Some even wonder if he's wasting his time. But he says nothing. He doesn't invite them in or ask for approval, because he knows the work isn't finished. And then one day, he steps into the light and unveils his creation. It's breathtaking, flawless. People gasp, unable to look away. They ask where it came from, but he doesn't need to answer. The silence that shaped it now speaks for itself. That's the power of silent work. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It commands attention when the time is right. By then, your work speaks in a voice no doubt can silence. When you build in quiet, you build stronger. You're not rushed by expectations or bent by opinions. You have room to fail, to adjust, to learn. That's where real progress lives. Not in public declarations, but in private repetitions. Not in talking about potential, but in proving it to yourself day after day when no one's around. Let your silence echo. Let it root so deeply that by the time the world sees the leaves, the tree is already unshakable. Let it whisper in every brushstroke, every line of code, every swing of the hammer. Don't waste your effort trying to look impressive. Use it to become impressive. Because silence isn't weakness. It's work in motion. It's the hush before the masterpiece, the stillness before the storm, the preparation that makes triumph inevitable. Stay low, stay locked in, and build quietly. When the foundation is steady, the work complete, and the world finally paying attention, you won't need to speak. Your results will say it all. Your presence will carry the weight. You weren't made to be noise. You were made to create impact. And true impact doesn't shout, it endures. So return to the workshop. Let the world wonder. Let silence sharpen your edge. Let your work speak only when it's finished. Because when your focus is on becoming excellent instead of being noticed, you become unforgettable. People remember what you do, not what you say. Think about it. People's memories are selective. They may nod when you speak, applaud your passion, even encourage your vision. But with time, they forget your words. They always do. What lasts is not what you said, but what you built, what you became. You can spend your days explaining your ambitions, painting your vision, talking about discipline and drive. But if those words aren't matched with real, visible action, they dissolve like smoke in the wind. The world doesn't run on promises, it runs on proof. What endures isn't the intention, but the impact. People respect not how clearly you describe your dream, but how consistently you build it. We live in a world overflowing with talkers, people who sound strong but move weakly, who declare goals yet avoid effort. And in that world, the one who moves with quiet certainty, whose work appears before their words, that's the person who holds real power. So if you want to be remembered, don't shout louder, don't post more, don't perform belief. Move better. Let your decisions be sharp and intentional, so clear that no one needs to ask what you stand for. Let your results carry the weight, not because you hype them, but because they exist, they function, they shine. Every word you speak should reflect something already complete, something alive in the world that proves itself without needing defense. If your language is filled with someday, almost, and soon, then ask yourself this. Are you writing checks with your mouth that your hands haven't earned? It's easy to say you're disciplined, focused, and hardworking. But without proof, those words are hollow. You can claim strength all day, but can you show it? You can describe your craft in vivid detail, but where is the product? Where is the fruit of your effort? Imagine a man who says he's a blacksmith. He tells you about the heat of the forge, the weight of the hammer, the resistance of the metal. His words are full of passion. Yet when you look around, there are no tools, no sparks, no steel, no creation. Would you believe him? Of course not. Because deep down, we all know the difference between performance and presence, between intention and creation, between echo and footprint. You can echo greatness with your voice, or you can leave a mark with your work. One fades, the other endures. People chase legacy, but they forget what legacy is truly built on. It isn't speeches, plans, likes, or shares. Legacy comes from results, tangible outcomes, finished work. And those things aren't born in conversation. They're forged in consistency, sweat, trial, and solitude, repeated again and again. The world is overflowing with noise, promises shouted into the void, declarations made before anything is earned. But there's something powerful about the one who doesn't explain, just executes. The one who doesn't market themselves, but builds something that matters. That's the person people remember. That's the person whose silence commands more respect than another speech. So stop trying to convince others who you are. Show them. Show it in how you show up, in what you finish, in how little you need to say. Because results speak louder than words. If you want respect, become useful, become undeniable. Be the person who doesn't need a spotlight, because their presence already fills the room. Let your work walk in before you do. Let your results speak so clearly that even your critics can't deny them. When your name is mentioned, let it carry proof. Real outcomes, not vague potential, not half-done dreams. Talk is temporary. It rises quickly, then fades. Action endures. It keeps working long after you've gone silent. It becomes the bridge others walk across, the evidence that outlives the voice. So speak less and build more. Replace description with demonstration. Stop narrating your potential and start producing results. And the next time you're tempted to explain your greatness, pause. Look at your hands. Ask what they've truly earned, what they've built, and let that answer guide your next move. In the end, people won't remember what you said you'd do. They'll remember what got done. Leave footprints, not echoes. Let your legacy be something solid, something they can stand on. You don't need people to remember something they once heard about you. You need them to see the results. Too often, we speak because we crave understanding. We share our plans, routines, and sacrifices not to boast, but to feel acknowledged, to be validated. We want others to recognize the weight of what we're carrying and the path we're walking. But here's the truth. Understanding is not required. It never was. If you wait for the world to understand before you begin, you'll wait forever. Meanwhile, days slip by, the fire cools, and the dream that once burned bright begins to fade under the weight of doubt. Relentlessness matters more than being understood. What fuels your future is not how clearly you explain yourself, but how firmly you move forward when no one claps, when no one nods, when no one understands. People may not see your vision. They may not grasp your silence, your early mornings, your focus, or your absence from familiar places. And that's fine. It's not their mission, it's yours. Yet too often we waste energy giving others a guided tour of our mind, explaining our work ethic and strategies, hoping their agreement will validate us. But you don't owe anyone that access. You don't need permission to move. You don't need approval to stay disciplined. You don't need an audience to justify your direction. You owe yourself only one thing: the completion of the mission. Picture a traveler crossing a vast desert, the sun burning overhead, the sand stretching endlessly in every direction. He walks alone, day after day, blistered and weary, but focused. Behind him, people watch from a distance. They scoff, shake their heads, and whisper, "Where is he even going?" There's nothing out there. Some call it foolish, others dangerous. Most simply don't understand. But the traveler doesn't turn to explain. He doesn't argue. He doesn't pause to prove the oasis exists. He just walks, step after step, because he knows it's real, even if they've never seen it, even if they never believe. That's the conviction you need. Quiet, certain, unshaken by misunderstanding. You are not here to convert doubters. You are here to arrive. People will misinterpret your silence as arrogance, your focus as distance, your discipline as obsession. Let them. Your job is not to translate your fire into terms they can accept. Your job is to burn, regardless. The right people will see it eventually, not because you explained it, but because your results made it undeniable. By then, their understanding won't matter, because you will have already become. Release the need to be understood. It's a heavy chain. It slows you, keeps you explaining when you should be executing, defending your path instead of walking it. If your energy goes into convincing, it's not going into creating. Every ounce spent narrating your life is stolen from living it. You don't need to prove your routine to those still asleep. You don't need to justify your grind to the idle. And you don't need to explain your silence to those who never learned how to listen. Your life is not a public debate. It's a private mission, and not every step needs commentary. Some steps simply need to be taken. To others, obsession may look like madness. Dedication may look like distance. Greatness in its early stages often looks like loneliness, and that is part of the price. If you aim to do something rare, you must stop expecting common minds to understand it. You must walk forward even when no one walks with you. You must stay the course when the road grows quiet. You must keep building even when the crowd turns away. And when you arrive, when the vision in your mind becomes reality in your hands, you won't need to explain. The results will speak. The vision will prove itself. The oasis will bloom. All the noise that once tugged at your sleeves will fade into silence. Once the work is finished, nothing more needs to be said. Carry your silence like a shield. Carry your focus like a weapon. Let your journey be the answer. Let your discipline be the language. You don't have time to pause for approval. You have work to finish, a desert to cross. Be relentless. Be misunderstood. Be unstoppable. Your vision isn't for everyone. What you carry inside, the pull, the clarity, the unshaken picture of your destination, is yours alone. No one else sees it the way you do. Not the crowd, not your peers, not even those who love you most. Because what you see isn't just a goal. It's the sum of everything you've lived through. The pain you endured, the lessons etched into you, the hunger that never left your bones. All of it shaped the vision you now feel called to build. You see details others will never notice. You feel the weight of its importance in a way no one else could ever understand. You dream with urgency because you know what it cost just to believe this was possible. But here's where the mistake begins. You speak that vision aloud. You offer it up like a gift, hoping others will treat it with the same reverence. You assume they'll feel its magnitude, sense its inevitability. But they don't. They can't. They weren't there the night it first called your name. They didn't see the sleepless hours when you fought against doubt. They never felt the fire that pushed you forward when the world told you to settle. So when they hear your dream, what they hear are just words, stripped of context, empty of spirit. Their response, a shrug, a joke, a call to be more realistic. At best, a polite nod hiding disbelief. And then discouragement seeps in, not because your dream has changed, but because their reaction rattled you. You start to question yourself, to hesitate, to replay the conversation and wonder why they didn't get it. But the fault wasn't in their hearing. It was in your sharing. Here's a truth most builders learn too late. Your vision is not for public consumption. It's not a performance, not a vote. It's a private covenant between you and the fire that refuses to die. The more you explain to those who cannot see, the more you dilute it, the more you invite misunderstanding, and the more you risk trading progress for approval. The greatest builders in history didn't pause to explain. They didn't stop their work to seek consensus. They didn't wait for applause before lifting the next stone. They built quietly, one piece at a time, heads down, hearts steady, hands moving. Only when the structure stood tall, only when the results spoke for themselves, did the world finally take notice. You must learn from that. Stop pausing your journey to explain your map. Stop handing your blueprint to those who've never built anything of their own. If they weren't called to walk the same road, how could they possibly recognize the destination? Some paths are meant only for your steps. Some visions must be guarded like sacred ground, cultivated in silence until the fruit speaks louder than any plan. Ask yourself, have you delayed your work just to explain it to people never meant to walk beside you? Have you doubted your steps because someone without vision questioned your journey? Have you traded momentum for commentary? Picture a man sailing beyond the horizon. He risks everything, battles storms, follows stars, and finally reaches a shore, rich, vibrant, untouched. He returns to his village, eager to share his discovery, but they laugh. They've never seen such a land, so they say it cannot exist. There's nothing beyond the sea, they insist. In that moment, the man must choose, abandon what he knows is real, or begin building it. That's your choice too. You can waste time explaining the ocean to those who never left the shore, or you can return and start constructing stone by stone, focused and unwavering. Because the truth is simple, your work will always speak louder than your words. Your discipline will always speak louder than your declarations, and your results will be the strongest proof you'll ever offer. Stop explaining, start building. Not to prove a point, but because you were born to create something only you can see. Let the bystanders remain puzzled. That's their role. They watch, they gossip, they guess. But you build. This isn't about ego, it's about responsibility. If the vision lives inside you, it's your duty to bring it to life. Not to convince others it's real, not to hold debates about its worth, but to construct it until it's undeniable. So clear that even the doubters can only stand in silence, with nothing left to question. Carry your vision like a sacred ember. Shield it from the wind, nurture it in the quiet, and give it space to grow without the need for constant validation. You don't need applause to start, you don't need agreement to keep going, and you certainly don't need permission to finish. Build because it is yours to build, not theirs to approve. Loose lips cost progress. The more you talk, the more you leak. The fire, the fuel, the momentum meant to carry you forward seeps out as words. Words that sound strong, feel powerful, and create the illusion of progress, yet build nothing real. That moment you share your next step, your bold plans, and someone nods, claps, or praises you, that moment is dangerous. It gives you the feeling of accomplishment without the substance. You walk away believing movement has begun, but in reality, you've only released the pressure that was meant to push you forward. The urgency that once burned in your chest now drifts away in casual conversation. You told the story of what you'll do instead of writing it in action. Words aren't bricks. They don't lay foundations, lift weight, build walls, or pave roads. Silent labor does. We live in a world obsessed with visibility, pressured to announce every goal, every change, every chapter. It feels like if you don't proclaim it, it isn't real. But the truth is the opposite. The more you announce, the more you expose your intentions to forces that weaken them. Doubt, mockery, misunderstanding, unsolicited advice, or worse, premature validation. Applause for a plan not yet executed can kill momentum. It feeds the ego before the soul has earned it. Every time you talk about what you'll do, you risk never doing it. Not from weakness or laziness, but because the need for approval can quietly replace the hunger for achievement. You start mistaking speaking for moving. You think you've taken a step forward, but in reality, you've stood still, only louder. What if your momentum didn't fade from failure, lack of talent, or unreadiness, but because you spoke too much? What if your best energy was drained describing the vision instead of pursuing it? That's not just theory, it's a recurring pattern. The more you narrate your future, the less mystery it holds. And mystery is powerful. It fuels focus, keeps the world guessing, and keeps you moving. Picture this. You're at the base of a mountain. High above, Tucked between the rocks flows a spring of the clearest, coldest water. You climb with a clay jar, knowing exactly how precious what you're about to collect will be. You fill the jar carefully, feeling its weight in your hands. On the way down, people stop you, asking what you've found. Some are curious, others skeptical. Each time, you tip the jar just a little to prove it, offering a sip here, a splash there. A moment of pride, a bit of proof. But by the time you reach home, your hands are light. The jar is empty. The spring was real, your effort was real, but now there is nothing left to pour. That's what happens when you overshare. What you're building needs to be carried, not displayed. It needs silence to grow. You can't expose the roots and expect the fruit to flourish. There is power in secrecy, strength in silence, and a sharpness that forms only when no one is watching. Let your goals mature in the shadows, away from noise, away from opinions, away from the temptation to talk too soon. Your hands must speak for you, not your voice. Hands don't lie. They don't exaggerate or chase applause. They simply produce. They create, they carry the weight, and they leave behind evidence. A finished book, a carved sculpture, a thriving business, a transformed life. Let your results enter the room before you do. The most successful people are often the quietest while they're working. Not because they lack words, but because they know the cost of speaking too soon. They understand that silence sharpens focus, privacy protects the process, and real progress doesn't need a narrator. So you must decide, do you want to talk about your life or build it? Do you want to keep tipping your jar, showing fragments of what might be, or protect it, preserve it, and arrive with something full, something real? You're not here to perform ambition, you're here to realize it. You're not here to impress bystanders, but to serve the mission, and that mission deserves your full attention, not scattered words. Protect your momentum like it's gold. Guard it. Hold it close. When people ask, smile and keep moving. When they guess, let them. When they doubt, let your silence be your answer. If you're serious about your future, let your labor speak louder than your language. Let your hands do the talking, and let your finished work echo long after the noise fades. Your vision is sacred. Don't waste it on applause. Build until the results stand on their own. Because when you speak too soon, you surrender. Control is often misunderstood. Many think it means dominance or bending others to your will. But real control has nothing to do with them. It's about you. It's about owning your time, your energy, your thoughts, and your direction. It's the quiet power that says, I know where I'm going, and I know how I'll get there. Every time you reveal the next step before it's fully formed, you hand that control away. You may think you're just sharing, seeking connection or encouragement, but in truth, you're inviting interference into something fragile, something not yet ready to be weighed or judged. You open the gates, and in come the comments, the confusion, the doubts. Sometimes subtle, sometimes loud, and suddenly the clear vision you carried inside begins to blur. Not because you lacked clarity, but because you surrendered it before it was strong enough to stand on its own. Why hand over something you've only just begun to shape? Why expose a fragile blueprint that still lives mostly in your mind, where even a slight push could knock it off course? That's the danger of sharing too early. You shift roles, moving from creator to performer. Instead of building with your soul, you start editing for someone else's comfort. Instead of following your compass, you adjust your steps to make sense to people who aren't even walking with you. At first, it feels harmless. A conversation here, a suggestion there. But those moments pile up. A seed of doubt, a second guess, a compromise. Before long, you look up and realize you're no longer on your road. You're walking one carve to accommodate someone else's opinion. You didn't lose your path through failure, you lost it through feedback. Feedback you never needed, never asked for. Feedback that showed up only because you opened the door too early. You might think you're being humble, collaborative, inclusive, but in truth, you're leaking control, bleeding direction, handing out pieces of your vision in exchange for nods that will never sustain you when things get hard. And they will get hard. Every vision worth building faces resistance, challenge, and uncertainty. When that moment comes, only clarity will carry you, not agreement, not applause. And clarity cannot survive if it's constantly diluted by the comfort zones of others. Picture yourself painting a canvas. Each brushstroke intentional, each color carefully chosen. It's your work, your expression, your truth. As you paint, people pass by. One suggests making it blue, another insists green is better. Someone says it should be more abstract, while another complains it's too messy and needs to be cleaned up. You listen, you adjust, you erase and repaint, trying to satisfy them. But by the end, the canvas is no longer yours. It isn't even art anymore. It's just noise, a scattered collection of opinions that don't belong together. That's what happens when you give away your direction too soon. You think you're being open-minded, but in reality, you've handed the steering wheel to people who have no idea where you're going. They can't see the final picture, they don't feel what you feel, and they don't carry the reason that drives you forward. And they never will, because the vision lives in you, not in them. That's why you must guard your work, your intent, and your pace. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not because people mean harm, but because they cannot see what you see, and they don't need to. Your mission isn't theirs to interpret, it's yours to complete. You must protect the space where your ideas are born. Preserve the freedom to move without explaining, to create without justifying, to build without bending for those who build nothing themselves. That's what true ownership looks like. It isn't defensive or selfish, it's sacred, quiet, and disciplined. The greatest things in life, the ones that change and define you, do not grow in rooms full of opinions. They grow in silence, in solitude, in that private place where it's just you and the work, just you and the reason. And in that place, you don't need anyone to understand. You only need to keep going. Because when the time is right, the world will see it. And when the work is finished, the results will speak in a voice louder than any plan ever could. That's when it's time to share, not when your vision is fragile, but when it's ready. Not when you're seeking permission, but when you've built something undeniable. Until then, silence is not absence. It's alignment, protection, and power. Own your silence. It isn't just the lack of words. It's your steering wheel, the way you stay in control when distractions pull at you. It's how you safeguard your progress, protect your clarity, and honor your calling. It's how you keep your direction truly yours. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Before you share your next step, ask yourself, is this a moment to speak or a moment to build? Let that answer be your shield. Because control isn't about gripping everything tightly. It's about holding the right things sacredly. And your vision deserves nothing less. You don't need to talk. You need to transform. There comes a point in every journey where no explanation, no declaration, no speech can hold the weight of who you're becoming. That moment arrives quietly, without applause or approval. It's marked by silence. The silence that comes after all the words, all the justifying, all the attempts to be understood. You've shared your plans. You've explained your struggles. You've offered your hopes, wishing they'd be honored. But that time has passed. Words have carried you as far as they can. What remains now is the becoming. Transformation doesn't need witnesses. A seed buried deep in the soil doesn't ask the earth to celebrate its sprouting. The seed breaks quietly in the dark. It pushes upward through soil and stone without a single word, and still, it grows. Night turns into day without announcement. The stars fade without asking for applause. The sun rises without demanding attention. Nature transforms with quiet certainty. So must you. Not with declarations, but with action. Not by telling others you've changed, but by becoming different. There's a strength that doesn't shout. It builds in stillness, sharpens in solitude, and when it appears, it needs no introduction. Yet most people never reach that point. Not because they lack strength or desire, but because they get trapped in the need to narrate their growth instead of living it. They pause their process just to talk about the process. They tell everyone what they're about to do, what they're fixing, what they've realized. And with every word, energy slips away. Momentum meant to carry them forward drains outward. Instead of diving into transformation, they perform it. Instead of staying rooted long enough to truly change, they chase validation, reassurance, and attention. And the change never takes root, because it was never given the silence it needed to grow. It was never given the chance to mature in the dark. Ask yourself something hard and honest. What if the world's opinion of you never shifted? What if no one ever believed you were evolving? Would you still choose transformation? Would you still wake up and walk the difficult road, even without applause? That is the true test. Because real transformation isn't about convincing the world, it's about confronting yourself. And that confrontation often happens alone, unseen. Picture a caterpillar trying to explain its future wings. It speaks of flight to those who've only crawled, of colors that don't yet exist. Of course, no one believes it. How could they? It still looks like what it's always been, small, earthbound, limited. But then the caterpillar does the only thing it can. It stops talking. It enters the cocoon, silent, confined, uncelebrated it. And in that stillness, change begins. That is where you are remade. Not on the stage, not in the spotlight, but in the cocoon, the unseen place where you stop describing and start becoming. And when the cocoon opens, no speech is needed. The wings are the speech. The flight is the proof. Transformation doesn't need explanation. It's undeniable. Be the cocoon, not the conversation. Let the work happen within. Let silence last long enough for true change to take root. Release the need for recognition and focus only on doing the work. Protect your evolution from eyes that cannot see and ears that cannot truly hear. You owe the world nothing until the work is complete. There is a sacredness in private progress, a purity in knowing your growth is yours alone, not shaped by the feedback of others, but by the fire you endure in solitude. When you stop performing change and start surrendering to it, something powerful happens. Growth takes root in a way that cannot be undone. The foundation becomes stronger, the structure unshakable. You're no longer building for applause. You're building because it's who you are becoming. This is your metamorphosis. Not a speech, not a performance, not a display for recognition. It's the moment you stop telling the world who you are and let your life reveal it. It's the discipline to grow quietly, to disappear from the noise, and to rise only when your work is undeniable. And when that moment arrives, it won't need explanation. The voices that once doubted will fall silent, not because you convinced them, but because your results spoke louder than words ever could. Those who doubted won't need an answer. The wings will speak for themselves. The journey, understood only in hindsight, will make perfect sense, even if no one believed along the way. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. Let them write their opinions in the dust behind you. Your mission is not to explain your path, but to walk it with quiet intensity, with sacred conviction, eyes fixed on the version of you waiting on the other side of the cocoon. So when you feel the urge to talk, to prove, to convince, pause. Redirect that energy inward. Let every unspoken word become a step, a repetition, a refinement, a deeper breath in the dark. That is how you rise. That is how you become. Because the next chapter of your life is not something you announce, it's something you live. It isn't written in captions or conversations, but in effort, in silence, in steady movement toward the person you know you're meant to be. You're not here to be explained. You're here to be undeniable. Step into the cocoon and let the work reshape you. When the time is right, your wings will say everything that needs to be said. Protect your fire from the wind, because a flame just beginning is fragile. It flickers with uncertainty, easily shaken by the slightest breath. One gust can snuff it out before it ever becomes heat, before it warms anything, before it knows what it could have been. That's what happens when you speak too soon about what you're building, your dream, your plan, your next chapter. It begins as a spark within you, glowing in private, flickering in silence. Small, yes, but real. Alive. Yours. Yet not ready. Not for exposure. Not for pressure. Not for the cold air of outside opinion. In the beginning, your vision is tender. Not weak, but unfinished. You're still learning how to carry it, how to feed it, how to breathe with it. You're still trying to understand it yourself. And that's often the moment people speak, not out of arrogance, but out of hope. They share the spark and wish the world will be kind. But the world is rarely kind. The world doesn't nurture fire, it tests it. That's why you must guard the flame. Recognize those early stages for what they are, sacred, silent, vulnerable. It is not the time to open the door and invite others in. It is the time to close it, to crouch over the spark, shielding it with your body, your focus, your discipline. Let it catch. Let it grow strong enough to burn for you before you ever try to make it burn for others. The world will not warm your fire. It will blow against it. It will question its heat, challenge its light. Not always with malice, sometimes with curiosity, doubt, or even fear disguised as advice. But every voice, every glance, every stray word carries weight. And if your fire isn't strong enough, if your belief isn't rooted deeply enough, their resistance can become your excuse to quit. You may hear hesitation louder than conviction and begin to wonder if the spark ever mattered at all. It's not that your dream was wrong. It was simply too early to withstand judgment, too early to endure scrutiny. It hadn't yet been fed by your own effort, tested by your quiet commitment. And so, it died, not from failure, but from exposure. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, is your dream burning strong, or are you showing it to the storm before it's ready? Are you speaking before the fire has formed into something unshakable? Are you letting the desire to be understood outweigh your duty to protect what you're becoming? Picture a woodsman caught in the storm. Rain falls, the sky heavy above him. He knows he needs fire, not just for warmth, but to survive. He kneels, calloused hands steady, eyes sharp. He gathers the driest twigs he can find. He clears a space in the dirt, but he doesn't strike the match and leave it exposed to the rain. No, he first builds a shelter, a small frame of bark and branches to shield the spark from the storm. Only when it's safe, only when it's protected, does he strike the match. The flame flickers, yes, but it holds. He cups his hands around it, feeding it patiently until it grows, until it becomes more than a flicker, until it becomes fire. You must do the same. Build your shelter in the storm. Don't rush. Don't reveal your fire while it's still fragile. Lay your foundation. Strengthen your focus. Grow your discipline like kindling. Let your commitment be the structure that shields what you're creating. Only then, when it burns hot enough on its own, will it withstand the wind. There's no weakness in silence. There's power in it. Power in waiting. Power in feeding your vision behind closed doors. Every moment you choose to build instead of broadcast, your fire grows stronger. Every time you stay quiet, but keep working, the spark stabilizes. You don't owe the world a preview. You owe yourself the proof. People love to celebrate the bonfire glowing in the night, its warmth radiating, its light seen for miles. But those same people often laughed at the spark, doubted the hands that struck the match, mocked the time it took to build the shelter. And yet, without that care, without that protection, the fire never would have lived. So stay silent, not forever, but for now. Let your ambition live quietly, nourished by your own breath. Let it warm you first, burning hot enough that no voice can extinguish it. And when it's ready, truly ready, you won't need to reveal it. It will reveal itself. It will radiate through everything you touch. It will be seen, not explained. It will be felt, not defended. Because by then, your fire won't just withstand the wind. It will bend the wind. It will roar against it. No storm will ever touch what you've built in silence. So protect your spark. Let it grow where only you can see it. Guard your beginnings, honor your process. Let silence be your shelter until the fire becomes untouchable. And when the time comes, when your fire is undeniable, the world will know. Not because you told them, but because the flame speaks for itself. Your results are the only story you'll ever need. When all is said and done, when the dust of conversation settles and the noise of opinion fades, people won't remember what you plan to do. They won't recall the dreams you described or the passion in your words. They will remember what you built, the thing that exists because you kept moving when no one clapped. The result that now stands tall, not because it was announced, but because it was finished. That is what remains. That is what echoes. Not the promise, but the proof. That's the hard truth in a world obsessed with narratives. We've become used to sharing every step, posting intentions, announcing beginnings, narrating plans. Yet none of it matters without execution. The world isn't short on stories, it's drowning in them. Everyone you meet has an idea. Every voice carries ambition. But the world doesn't crave more declarations. It's starving for demonstration. And here's what the silent builders understand. Real achievement rarely makes noise on the way up. It's born in early mornings, long nights, and private decisions no one else ever sees. It isn't glamorous or dramatic. Often, it looks dull, just discipline, consistency, and the refusal to quit. It's laying brick after brick when no one is clapping. And one day, people finally look up, and there it is, a bridge, a tower, a book, a business, a life. Real, useful, undeniable. You don't need to tell the world you're disciplined. Be disciplined. You don't need to explain the greatness within you. Build something that speaks for itself. That's the irony of legacy. The more you talk about what it will be, the less time you spend creating something worth remembering. So let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them invent their own stories. Meanwhile, you keep building. Quietly, relentlessly, head down, eyes locked on the vision. Let them believe you've disappeared. Until your work grows too large to be ignored. Until they stand in awe. not of your promises, but of your proof. Imagine walking into a village. You say nothing, carry no title, make no announcement. But behind you stands a bridge, stone by stone, built by your hands. It connects two worlds, carries weight, and people cross it every day. No one asks you how it was made. They don't need to. The bridge speaks for itself. It is your biography written in stone, your story told without words. It exists not because you promised, but because you delivered. That is the difference between those who only dream and those who truly build. Talkers chase understanding. Builders let their work stand undeniable. And it's only builders who leave an impact that outlives them. You don't owe the world your dreams. You don't owe them constant updates on your hopes or strategies. What you owe is discipline, execution, and results. It's easy to feel inspired, easy to talk about motivation. But what defines you is what you make real. Most people won't remember who shouted the loudest. They'll remember the ones who quietly, persistently shaped reality until their presence couldn't be ignored. So if you're waiting for permission, stop. If you're seeking understanding, stop. If you're holding out for the perfect words to describe what you're becoming, stop. You don't need to narrate your transformation, you need to live it. Turn that inner flame into something visible. Build until the finished work speaks louder than you ever could. A book doesn't explain why it was written. A building doesn't explain why it stands. A bridge doesn't justify its usefulness. They exist. They serve. They endure. And that's the kind of life you must build. A life that doesn't beg for validation or chase attention is the one that leaves people in awe. They'll know it wasn't easy. It wasn't luck. It was labor. Real, disciplined labor. Let your results become your biography. Let your legacy do the talking. Until then, say less, post less, announce less, and focus on doing more. Speak only when it's time to present what's finished, not what you hope to do or plan to start. Because when the final chapter is written, the world won't remember your intentions. It will remember your impact. It won't revisit your declarations, but it will recognize your deliverables. The most powerful message you'll ever send is what you leave behind, not in words, but in the work itself. Be remembered not for promises, but for what you accomplished. Let your name be tied not to noise, but to something solid and lasting, something future generations can point to and say, that was real, that mattered, that changed things. Your life is not a performance. It is a project. One day, people won't look at what you intended, but at what stands because of you. Make sure it stands. Not everything needs to be shared. The strongest people move in silence, building in private and letting the world feel their impact, not just hear their updates. Protect your vision like treasure. The less you explain, the more powerful you become. From this day forward, speak less and do more. Let your actions echo louder than words, because true strength isn't loud. It's quiet, focused, relentless. Keep building and let them wonder. Wishing you health, happiness, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.